Past. Markian, everybody listen to the power of music. Silence. Go. I want to talk. What he said is wrong. What I want to find out. We've got to just one.
We'll play you the rest of that later. Here's Damien. Now, so we got that name. His name is Markian, and the violinist. We got him up to do this. We asked him to do a broken-hearted version of the Australian National Anthem, and that's what he did. And he came on, he did it. Lots of silence, lots of tears. This thing is going viral around the world. Everybody's been wanting to meet him. And we got him first. Here he is. Hello, Markin. How you going?
Добрий вечір, шановні друзі. Дуже приємно бути з вами.
Oh my God, he's had the jab. He's had the jab.
What was that? No, he's only kidding. He's only kidding. He can't speak English badly, but he can speak it. It's very nice to have you here, Markin. I have to admit, we've become very close since we met at that swingers party the other day with the thing. And no, seriously, we met at a protest march in Ackland Street, and just bumped into each other. And I suggested you change the anthem to a broken-hearted version, and now you are a bloody global sensation.
I wouldn't
From
go
little
quite
things,
that
big things
far.
grow.
I would. I've had good thing. I've had people contacting me from America, saying it's all over Telegram in America, Israel, Italy, Ireland. It's yeah. You eventually Damien and I will be far in your wake, and we'll all be talking about you. I'm just going to see where the doctor is. And how's it feel? Have you had any good?
I'd just say the good thing about him too is, like, you met him on Ackland Street where there would have been maybe 250 people protesting. Then he turns up on the steps of Parliament and he plays that beautiful rendition of the national anthem in front of maybe 125 of us protesting, and then follows it up and plays it just as magnificently, of course, and looks fantastic at that backdrop with 15,000 plus people on the weekend. So he's not afraid to put in the hard yards. We've got another gig for you too, actually, Markin. I don't know if we've told you yet. We're just sort of commandeering you. I'm figuring that none of the state-based musical ensembles are probably going to be employing you for a little while. Who knows? So we're doing another gig in Geelong this weekend. After we finish the protest in Melbourne, we're getting in a convoy. We're heading down the Princess Freeway down to Geelong, and on the shores of Corea there, we're going to address another gathering.
You might do it. You might do it twice. Then might do it once again in Melbourne, and you do it again in Geelong. So we're your agents.
Maybe a different piece, but yes.
We're pretty good. We take 95%. We take 95%, but that's only because we're trying to protect your assets, and your rights. And
very kind, really very kind.
And the problem for you will be when you do a different piece now, everyone will say, "But we wanted the national anthem. We don't want to hear that."
At the moment, 95% of nothing is still nothing, so you're very welcome to it.
Can I ask how did it feel?
Ukrainian.
I mean, that was. I was amazed because that was a massive crowd. That was a big crowd. They were rowdy, and you got up, and they're all carrying on. We had people carrying on behind us because they wanted to speak, and we were trying to get them to stop, because we wanted you to come on. And so there's all this wrangling, and then we finally got you to play. How did it feel?
Well, look, I mean, obviously, the fact that the music has such a power to communicate such a powerful message is not a surprise to me. I've been doing this for a while now, and it is an incredibly powerful medium. So from that point of view, the music is powerful like that, and especially in such dramatic situations, both in terms of the local event that we saw and, of course, the circumstances in which we find ourselves. But I definitely wasn't expecting the response that came about. To me, it just demonstrates the fact how much people needed something like that, how much people needed solace, to share, a sharing of grief, a feeling of warmth, which is all everything that music can provide. But there were some very raw reactions from the people in the crowd, and I was very moved by that, because it just made it so abundantly clear how much people are hurting, and how much all of us are hurting. And they're definitely not getting any support from any mainstream institutions, and to try and tough it out like that for all of these months and months, it's very difficult. And so, look, I was obviously incredibly grateful for the opportunity to offer my small contribution to all of these people. But it's it just highlights how much it's needed, because there's not enough of the sort of human warmth going on right now, especially directed at the people who don't agree with the narrative.
Susan Wakefield here has commented, stunning and heartfelt, Marking, you touched our souls. She's one in my video, I think. Susan, you're a great big sook. And she was just sobbing. It was amazing to watch. So around me, because I was holding the microphone and looking down, there was tears everywhere. I've never seen so many people cry for the national anthem ever. The only other time I found it beautiful was when we sung it at the shrine, but there was something just so haunting. And what people have said is they relate it to the Titanic film, The Titanic, and it's not so much the same music, but the sense that you're playing something as something sinking, and what's sinking, of course, is our democracy.
The strings are so sorrowful, aren't they? Strings.
Yeah. Did it take you? Was it hard to do when you went to actually,
put it together?
Yeah, that's the word.
The
arrangement.
No, not particularly. It seemed to come together fairly easily for some reason. Maybe the message that the music was trying to get across just resonated so much with all of us, myself included, that everything fell into place. I just sort of started mucking around a little bit, and it all came together. And I quickly turned on the microphone to grab it before it disappeared, sent it across to you. And then the rest is history.
When you first heard it yourself, did you think, oh, that works?
As it was coming together, yes, I was thinking there's something here, so which is why I quickly tried to record it just in case it disappeared.
Yeah.
Melbourne's weather was fantastic on the day too, wasn't it? Sort of played its part in increasing the drama.
You mean a couple of days ago?
Inclement weather. I mean, it was just sort of raining one minute, and then there was sort of bright sun.
Yes, well, I came up to Michael and I said, "Look, I'm sorry, I won't be able to play if it's raining, because the wooden instrument is not going to. I mean, it's a fragile instrument." But then it stopped just long enough, and then it started spitting just after I finished. So it was all very well organised.
Yeah, it wasn't organised with the crowd. I mean, it was just all chaotic. So it looked like it wasn't going ahead. We didn't even know we were going to speak. I mean, it was really... I mean,
the weather was well organised.
Yeah. So it was amazing how it
Michael
came together.
Had that under control, yeah.
But when
CP had that under control. China controls everything, as we know.
And so I've seen Craig Kelly has shared it as the politician. He called it the most beautiful.
The member for
the most beautiful rendition of the Australian national anthem ever. Ricardo Bossi shared it. He said the same. Sky News had it on, and they were apparently talking about it for ages, because they were saying that the MSM was saying there's only about 200 people there. Did you count 200? Do you think we reached 200? There's this sort of behind me.
Well, I was just going to point out the background behind you. That's a massive figure.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe just touching on 192. Yeah.
Round it up. Fair enough. 200. Yep.
Some of the videos that show that angle that we see behind Michael they're doubly good because they give you a sense of the crowd and how many people were there.
Yeah. The other remarkable...
I posted it to my Facebook feed too. Don't worry, it's had about 17, 18 likes on my Facebook feed.
Wow.
So don't
The
be denied.
The other remark...
Might be up to 21 now. I haven't looked for a few hours.
the other remarkable thing was there's so many different versions of it because everyone had their hand up, but it was their phones. And so you have versions that are miles back. And because we had the microphone up, everyone could hear it. But can we ask, going back, why did you first come to protest? What's made you come to... Was St Kilda your first one?
No, I started going a little bit before that. But, well, obviously, like a lot of people, I had spent a long time being unhappy with many aspects of what's going on, but felt that nothing really could be done about it. And I was, I'm not pleased with myself in that regard. There were people who were standing up against many things from much earlier, and I have an enormous amount of respect for that. But I think the tradie protests, they sparked something when I saw them happening. I watched, obviously, Rukshan's lives, which there was the particular day where I think they came onto the bridge was very powerful because I think I basically sat there the whole day and watched Rukshan's feed.
Okay, yep.
I was just struck by, first of all, how many people there were, but secondly, what the general ambience was. I mean, obviously, I know that there were isolated incidents of violence, but if from following Rukshan's feed, there was just this overwhelming feeling of normal people coming out to fight for what's right, to just make their voices heard, and then, in contrast, the bile poured on them by the corporate media. It all just it was a stark realization, and so anyway, that basically told me that it was important to stand up, even if you're not convinced that it'll make a difference, but it's important to try. I also, like I mentioned to Michael previously, I didn't feel that I had anything to offer. I don't have any legal knowledge or medical knowledge. I'm not a beefy, burly fellow who's going to react, who's going to be able to shrug off getting bullets shot at him.
And now there's Dan Andrews has a picture of you in his hotel room. He's throwing darts at it. Where'd he come from?
I wonder where those stinging sensations were coming from in the past couple of days. Actually, it's the voodoo doll.
He's into his black magic, I think, Daniel Andrews. We can say that for sure.
Philippa Collins, we violinists have everything to offer.
Very true.
She's been following the show for a while. I believe she's talked to you. I've actually had other singers and musos coming forward now, going, can you use my music? Which is really nice. So you've obviously inspired lots of people. And the other beautiful thing about it is the power of art. At the start of this, basically art was seen as non-essential, and yet basically you stopped everyone for 1 minute 42 seconds.
1 minute's worth of music is done.
That's
the reaction
right.
to it.
1 minute 42 seconds worth of music, and you've just gone, and it's not just the thing; it's encapsulated it. Everyone sort of says it's just encapsulated the entire mood of so many people.
While we're at that point, Mike, I'll just ask Marky, and we've both talked at this at length about, look, I don't want to frame it too readily for you, but you're going to have your own opinion anyway, I'm sure, Marky, and how disappointment with the arts community's response to the draconian nature of these pandemic measures. What have you made of all that in your community, in the music world? Like, what's the response been like, and how have you felt about it?
Well, it's definitely been a very lonely place to exist for people who don't share the narrative. And we have a new guest.
We'll get to the doctor in 2 secs.
Might have had a couple anyway. Keep going, Marky.
Yeah. So it definitely lonely place, and I've been contacted by people since playing that also have said the same thing. The overwhelming response from the arts community has been one of falling into line with the narrative, and all that entails, which includes a very strong lack of interest and lack of any sort of tolerance for even bringing up debate, which of course we see everywhere, especially in the corporate media, and it's that censoring of debate, not necessarily of the positions themselves, but it's just the idea that what's being fed to us is beyond debate. It is not to be questioned at all. That's very worrying. Because
that's a great place to bring in Dr. Paul Oosterhuis.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, I can hear you. All right.
I just said your name. Did I get it right? Dr. Oosterhuis.
You did pretty well.
He's been practicing.
Well, Markian was just saying about how there's no debate, and Dr. Paul Oosterhuis basically had the audacity to stick by his Hippocratic Oath and debate, and now he's been deregistered for it. It's astounding.
It's very inspiring.
That should be the question, really, shouldn't it?
I tell you, Markian, your rendition of the national anthem brought tears to my eyes, and I can tell you, I noticed how the crowd just transformed with the music. You know, Michael was saying, shut up, and there was people talking, and then you started playing, and within a few seconds, everything was transformed. The crowd was transformed, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful because people at that moment, in that 1 minute and 42 seconds, around the world, people heard the real national anthem. You know, but it wasn't just the notes, but you know, the emotion you can get behind the violin is awesome. You know, well done.
It's a very thank you. It's a very versatile instrument and well suited to such tasks.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, we did say try come up with a version that sounded like we were in the camps. So you know what I mean. So yeah, that's right. Doctor, how's life treating you since now you've been ousted by your establishment? You know, it's astounding.
Well, when I was logged on, when I finally was able to connect, I was trying to say that maybe this is a two drink minimum discussion. I don't know. I've just started, but yeah. Look, I've been learning a lot, and
2 drink maximum. I think in your case, Doctor, 2 drink maximum.
Well, that's still the first. That's still the first. But
okay, one more then.
But the point is that we're in very serious and dangerous times, you know, and we have to use every means possible to reach people, you know, to connect with them on a level, because part of the propaganda is fear. That's why I focus on early treatment. That's, you know, I'm back to tell you all about the blessings of early treatment. Both if you've been vaccinated and if you haven't, you know, and you're worried about, you know, viruses.
There goes. We just got back on YouTube for about an hour. There we go.
Yeah,
There's our next 2-week ban. Do you know, Doctor? Today I met a man who was working. He's from South Africa. He works in the hospitals here. In the operating theatres. He didn't tell me what it was, but they've had 3 meetings with him to try and get the vaccination. And he goes, I want ivermectin. Why can't I have it? And it's a free country. And they said, because the government says you can't. And now they've sacked him. And they're desperately trying to keep him on. And he just says, look, and they keep calling him. He goes, stop calling me. Until you allow me to have a choice, don't call me. I'm not taking that vaccination. And now he was on the steps with us at Parliament today. He says he doesn't know what he's going to do about his mortgage and all this. But what he said was he grew up in South Africa. He's a black man. He grew up in it. He said he knows it. He came here to escape it, and he says it's coming. The violence is coming. The brutality is coming. There's no other option for them because they're going to have to suppress people, and that's all they'll be left with if this bill goes through. So very, very brave man. I'm meeting him again tomorrow. And so I was thinking of you when I met him.
I was listening to Angus, I think it's Angus Grant, one of your MPs, who's actually speaking out a few hours ago. And
Okay.
it's lovely when you have these tiny little gems of
Neil
sanity.
Angus.
Neil Angus. That's it. You know, beautiful to see. But we can't rely on the politicians, like I said last week.
No.
It's the people that have to let them, particularly your Governor General, know, because if this ever gets to the Governor General's signature, clearly he or she needs to know very clearly and non-violently.
She, in our case.
So she needs to know that it's time that this is the most important signature she will make in her life. Shall I put it that way? You know.
I don't think
Daniel wrapped himself in the diversity blanket that he likes to wrap himself in when he appointed our first ever female Governor General. That's when he used to like diversity, but suddenly he doesn't like it anymore. It doesn't suit him anymore. I wonder if that was all a ruse the whole time. Anyway,
Damien, for the record, I'm trans-vax, so I'm very sensitive when you talk about this. You know, I'm trans-vax, so I identify as vaccinated.
there goes our Twitter account.
I went into a bookshop today and they were asking me if I was vaccinated, and I identify as a 12-year-old, so I don't need even to be vaccinated yet, if you wouldn't mind. So out of the way.
I don't want a hate crime here, okay? This is how I identify.
If I could just grab you through this screen right now, there would be a hate crime.
And the Liberals have to accept, you know, by their own rules. You know, you have to accept this is how I identify, okay, guys?
So you identify as a vaxxed person, is that right?
I identify as a vaxxed person, even though I haven't been vaxxed, you know.
And I identify as a 12-year-old, so I don't have to be vaxxed. I'm fine. I'm 12 at the moment.
Well,
at the moment.
But that's coming. That 5 to 11's already been approved.
Yeah. I'll readdress it when it does.
Okay. Let's get back to talking about heroes here. Just having this shitstorm going on. There's Markian. I have to admit, I want to talk on about the other beautiful thing you did was after you'd played that incredible song, and you just knew it was, as I was holding it, I thought, oh, this is just working. This is just great. This is really working. And then you just did a little nod and you got down. You were just gone. But I have to admit, you should have seen the crowd, Doctor, because Marky and I walked off to sort of let the other speakers think. The crowd was just swamping him, just coming up, hugging him. They were amazing, crying in this. It was an extraordinary moment.
Michael. Talent and humility. I mean, this guy. Damn it.
God damn it.
I think it's already gone down in history, you know. That one rendition will spread through time. It will. It was very time.
The honest to God, Markin, the people will be honest to God, people will be playing that in years, even because there's all these different versions, and people are already putting it together. I've seen all these different versions where some are at the back of the crowd and some at the front. People are working with it, and so it's amazing. We're actually.
And because it's just a musical version, you don't have to know the words, and most Australians don't know the words to the national anthem. So that's
right.
It's win-win for us, you know.
In fact, to be honest, until you did it, it was really known as a shit song. It was our anthem, but I mean, it was a shitty song. It sounded, you know,
everyone really wanted Waltzing Matilda, didn't they? They sort of wanted Waltzing Matilda, but they got stuck with this.
Work, or Peter Allen, Still Call Australia Home. I mean, it was just this. It sounded like a John Howard song, where he liked it because it was John Howard, and we all had to sing it, but you just didn't like it. It's never, ever, ever moved me, except when the guys sung it at the shrine before they got beaten up by the cops. Apart from that, it's never, ever moved me, ever. And it's certainly never, ever made a whole crowd cry, ever. So that's...
Well, it's about the message behind the notes, isn't it? and what is being delivered. I think I mentioned to someone else, I think part of the reason why the reaction was so strong is because the message resonated with everybody there. It was a message of understanding. It was a message of community, and it was a message of sharing some sort of human bond, which again is something that has been taken away from us over the past 18 months. So
it says here it was written. Sorry, it says here it was first written in the late 1980s, 1890s. So it's that old.
1890s, is that right?
That's what it's saying here. I don't know if it's true. It's just someone saying it.
Wow.
Cheryl Ann. Wouldn't it be interesting if that's actually how it was first played, and they played it, and someone said, "No, it's too slow. Let's get it going." All sung it that way ever since.
Well, I don't think the usual point of national anthems is to make people depressed. So probably not.
Yeah. Well, it was an amazing day today. Today, Doctor, what was interesting, I was on the steps of Parliament today, and people were getting up, much smaller crowd, speakers were getting up. 2/3 of them have had the first vax, and they're really upset that they have. They didn't say they'd had adverse reactions, although one girl, someone had a 14-year-old niece who'd had a hysterectomy. Couldn't stop bleeding after it, so she'd had 14, had a hysterectomy. But the others basically were just devastated. And then this is the most remarkable thing. There was one young man who got up. He said, I was a meth addict. So I was a meth addict. I got off it. 3 years I've been clean. He actually did a course to become a social worker. He was working with meth addicts to get them better. Now he can't do the job. Golfing is his favorite thing. He can't go golfing because you've got to be double jabbed to go golfing. And he can't go to Narcotics Anonymous unless he takes drugs, unless he gets vaccinated. And he was laughing with us when he was telling me, because he said it was so silly. But when he got up at the mic, he didn't cry, but he just, and the whole day of me sitting there listening to all these stories has just been a tale of human carnage. People having their lives destroyed. And on top of that, they've stopped all the crisis payments, and they're probably going to make them, they probably won't give them the dollar unless they get vaccinated. So there's just this absolutely grinding determination to get this juice into the Aussies' veins. Yeah. Amazing.
I suspect that that's not going to end. That's why we have to pick a point where all of us, where we pick a point where we say, this is enough is enough. Where is our line? You know, I firmly believe there will be a point for each and every one of us where the line will be crossed. You know, maybe it'll be your third vax, maybe it'll be your fourth vax, maybe it'll be, you know, I joke, maybe it'll be half joke. Maybe it's when they ask for your kidney to, you know, to help their leader. You know, where does this go? It really goes to these very dark places. You know,
it does. I've actually had several people this week telling me I don't want to take the third jab. Whether they will or not, but they're saying they're determined they're not going to take the third one. And in Israel, apparently, and we only get rumored news, it's all through Facebook and Rumble, but apparently there's like 1.5 million people that are refusing to take the third one. You know?
Then you lose your vaccination status.
That's right. You go back to being lepers like us. Yeah. What are you going to do, Doctor? Have you thought about your future now?
Well, I don't have. Well, my current future is to spread the word about early treatment.
Yeah.
You know, I'm really happy to talk to you about, you know, to show people how to get to the flccc.net protocols. It's not the only protocol, but these are a group of doctors I trust who've been treating patients with COVID, collaborating with doctors around the world. And, you know, that's all it is. It's just a doctor talking to other doctors, and they say, this works. This is what we've got the evidence for. Here's the evidence. And even the naysayers, even the most vax apologetic people on the social media, you could see, like I was watching John Campbell, who I respect greatly, you know, and he's been trying to walk the tightrope of censorship. So he's been aware of what's been happening with relation to early treatments and the fraud and the misinformation. At the same time, he has to keep saying, and also Roger Sahult from MedCram, a lot of respect for these doctors. You know, he's a wonderful doctor. In fact, it was his YouTube channel that first alerted me to zinc and quercetin. Also, zinc, quercetin, and hydroxychloroquine as zinc ionophores, and that this could work against all the RNA viruses. So, I mean, these are fantastic people, and you know, but when they started talking about vaccines the other day and the evidence, and I could see they knew they were lying, and I posted the expression on their faces, you know, because it's time. It's time to call them out. It's not time to. There's no longer time to speak bullshit, right? We're calling. I guess my role is just to call out whoever. Look, I may be wrong, but I'm not confused. You know.
Well, the thing is,
people are constrained.
you
They're
can't.
constrained by the restraint on speech.
Yeah, that's right.
But as soon as
And
you
the thing
accept
is,
that
it can't
restraint,
have free
you're in so
speech.
much trouble.
Well, because
Tyranny.
we're living in a
Yeah,
Black
that's
Mirror
right.
episode. You know, I was thinking tonight, how would I describe what's going on? Because you just have to say, look, let's pretend we're in a Black Mirror episode, you know, where a small, tiny group, a cabal of maybe, you know, 150 or 200 people who are immensely rich, you know, and I've been watching them printing money, you know, without limit for decades now, you know, since the 70s, since we went off the gold standard. Basically, if you were a friend of a banker, you know, I don't have those sort of friends, but they would say like, hey, Paul, I like you. Have $100 billion. I'll give it to you at 0.2%, you know, because I like you. And, you know, if you gave me $100 billion, you know, I'd be able to buy things, you know, and I'd be able to invest higher than the rate of inflation. I mean, the rest of us don't have those sort of terms. So there's been interest rate apartheid, and there's been a redistribution of wealth for decades. I've been watching this, and it really started in '71. But it's gone so well now that all the wealth has trickled to the top. Finally, nearly everything is at the top, and they just want to get the last little bit. You know, they just want to. It's because if you can print money, of course it's tempting to own everything. I would like to own everything too.
It's like Monopoly.
Yeah,
It's that simple.
And they don't even care about money anymore. They've been having the monopoly money that people have been accepting for decades now. So these people are starting.
It's like they want to turn the world into a great big national park for the elites.
Yes, exactly. Like we said, Lex Luthor. You know, I want Australia.
And we're not invited.
Yeah.
No, we're going to be removed.
The elites.
We're going to be removed. We're going to be removed. So,
Can I ask you, Doctor, though, just before we go on? There's and so we're having a steep learning curve into totalitarianism and tyranny, and it's becoming very, very clear that tyranny can't handle the truth. The truth will destroy it. That's why it gets rid of anyone brave enough to speak the truth, and that's why it had to get rid of you. But that's the case. In order to survive, it needs. And what I was thinking, like, it's selling the poster, and the poster is. Everybody's happy in Dan's Melbourne. And if you're not happy, shut the fuck up and just smile anyway.
Just take the jab.
That's it. Just take the jab, shut up, smile, and that's it. And then these people go, well, no, and they stand up, and that's why they have to move. And that's the same with you, Markian. I know there was some orchestra you were supposed to play with, and they've said they can't play with you. And it's not because they're scared they're going to catch COVID off you. I'm assuming that they're actually scared of the government. They don't want retribution. There's just a fear.
There were other issues involved there. By my appearance at the protest, I was labelled as an anti-vaxxer, and then I had to clarify that stance. And in the end, I actually was the one who ended up pulling the plug because I spoke with. Over the past couple of days, I've spoken with a couple of other musicians, including one at the protest on Saturday, and he was saying that he used to play in a band, and he was told that by his other band member that the gigs are popping up again, and
I remember this.
They need to know his status. And he said, "Look, I love you, but I'm not going to play in segregated venues and for segregated crowds." And I was very, very struck by that. I was very, very struck by that. It's a position that yes.
At that point, I just wonder, could I ask, how much does your Ukrainian heritage and the history of what happened there under the hands of the Soviet Union and the massacre of, I've heard, somewhere around 11 million people through starvation, through enforced starvation, how much does that play in the decision that you've made?
It's at the back of the mind. I was 3 years old, I think, when when Ukraine became independent, and I was in Ukraine, obviously, having been born in the Soviet Union officially. So I was 3 when the Soviet Union ceased to exist in Ukraine, and then we left for Australia soon after. But all it would take would be a visit back to Ukraine in the past years, which I did many times, in order to see the remnants of that totalitarian state, both in terms of the administrative remnants, but also the psychological remnants. My family were not on the side that were happy with how everything was. They were dissenters, and so they don't carry positive memories. It was a very tense life where you basically had to live a double life. Of what was said in the house was not to leave the walls of the house because of the recriminations that would occur. I have family members. I have one particular family member who was a founding member of the Helsinki group, which was a group founded in Ukraine in 1976 to monitor how effectively or not effectively the Soviet Union was enforcing the Helsinki Accords, which it signed up to in 1975, which, among other things, were concerned with human rights abuses. And so this family member of mine, he was a founding member, and for his activities and basically being a part of that group, he was sentenced to 7 years in a high security camp and then 5 years of exile for anti-Soviet agitation and propaganda. So yeah, I am very aware.
Don't you see though that I think people are leading that double life here already, especially doctors.
So.
The doctor, we had one friend. I met her. I'd heard this story from my husband, but I actually met her on Saturday. So she went in to get an exemption, and he literally just jumped. She said he jumped out of his seat, walked down to the reception, and in a crowded waiting room, told the receptionist to call the police. And she said, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I can't give you an exemption." And she goes, "But what about my duty of care?" And because I want to know and he just kept going, "Call the police, call the police, call the police." In this, and she said everyone was just silently sitting up there. It's extraordinary. And that's not the first one I've heard. We had someone else call me up and said they had the same experience in a country town, and the doctors were doing the same, call the police. I don't know if the doctors are thinking that these are plants to see whether they'll give an exemption, so they're scared of it. I don't know. But
doctors are very scared, Michael. One thing I get because of my position is lots and lots of requests for exemption. How do we deal with the exemption gauntlet, And there's very few GPs out there who they know that they're under intense scrutiny. I've heard rumors that if you do more than 3 exemptions in a period of time, you come onto APRA's radar. So it doesn't matter how good your grounds are, and I hear so many good grounds. When I said if I got my ability to offer exemptions again, I see thousands, at least hundreds and hundreds of people have approached with what I consider very good medical grounds, autoimmune disease, previous anaphylaxis, they should be laid down as theirs if you cared about health, but because of a bureaucracy.
Doctor, I'm hearing too that if people get exemptions, all they're getting is maybe 2 months. They've got an exemption until January the 1st or at the latest January the 15th or something. It's like they get a couple of months reprieve. It's hardly...
Really?
Well,
That's amazing.
People off the hook altogether.
At the moment, that's enough, because if this crazy the world will be in total chaos, I think, within 2 months. If we're living day by day. Honestly, look how much has changed in the last week.
I've got the goat ready. I'm just warning you. My trigger's on the goat, Doc. Proceed, buddy.
I'm just saying. Look how much has changed even in the last week.
Oh yeah, absolutely. History is flying past our windows, Doctor. It really, really is. Can I ask another thing? I know, you go ahead.
I just want to ask something of Michael on that point. So we talk about this tyranny that took over the Ukraine, and I know in Solzhenitsyn's masterpiece, The Gulag Archipelago, he talks about how they would sit and smolder in the camps, thinking if they had have done something earlier, and basically meaning when the NKVD came to pick them up and take them away, the secret police, whatever you want to call it, if they had have even just hit them with whatever they had, ambushed them in the hallway with pots and pans and sticks. So they worried and were concerned for their future. So one of them eventually, honestly, didn't go home to their family. So the others would know that there's a consequence to be paid for enacting this tyranny. Was there a point at which in the Ukraine or in the Soviet Union in general, something could have been done to stop the tyranny taking place?
It's an interesting question. The tyranny that was enforced by the Soviet Union on the Ukrainian people didn't come against a backdrop of democracy, which is what makes it very different from our situation now. The Soviet Union, there was a Ukrainian republic, independent republic declared a couple of times in the first half of the 20th century, first after the revolution, the Soviet Revolution, and that didn't last long. But what did that Ukrainian republic come from? It came from the Tsarist Russia, which was not a particularly liberal place to exist in. Then the western half of Ukraine survived without the Soviet Union until the Second World War, and it survived sort of with under Poland and under other nations. So when the Soviets did come, they came with tanks to enforce this tyranny. So that's a different story. You can't really... I remember reading recently an English writer who was talking about the same situation that we're facing here in the UK, and he was basically calling on people, there's got to be mass civil disobedience. You have to not comply while you still can. And then he was using Australia as an example. This was a couple of weeks ago. And he used Australian example to say, you can't non-comply with a truncheon in the face. Now, if it gets to that point, you're in strike. So he was saying, while that's still not the case in the UK for them to do something about it, but then in the case of Ukraine, what can you do when the tanks start rolling in? I mean, there was active armed insurgents and resistance up until, I think, the 50s. But they were hunted down and either killed or emigrated. So that's a different story, and I think that the difference there is a stark difference, and should highlight that we actually do have a chance to stop this from happening.
I don't know that, because I know what you're talking. Yeah, Damien, what you're talking about is people coming to the house, pulling people out. But Doctor, this week we've had people on the show who have chronic conditions. One of them has Crohn's disease. He went to the doctor to St. Vincent's Hospital because he needed an operation. And the surgeon says, no jab, no operation. And it's not a one-off. We found another woman who came on the same show, Veronica, I think her name was, and same thing, another different chronic situation, needs care, can't get it unless she complies. And that's happening here. So what's the difference between that and pulling someone out of the house? I mean, these people could literally die from not having this care. So it's sort of parallels, you know what I mean? And that's happening right now.
It's called coercion. It's illegal. It's in no universe is it legal what they're doing. In no universe does this make sense in terms of health. So no. I no longer believe this is about health. I can talk about all the health stuff and my opinions, but it's not about health. This is now about, well, an attack on our freedoms, clearly, an attack on our individual sovereignty, even bodily autonomy.
Yeah.
It's an attack on our on our sources of information.
He's learning.
It's an attack on everything that we hold dear. That's why Markian's rendition was so powerful, because it just took us back 2 years or something, maybe 3 years, when we lived as free people, especially the Victorians. But
yeah, it's true. But what about this?
But Paul, you said it's illegal, and everyone knows it's illegal, but it's like we're talking about a time where there's no rule of law anymore.
No,
because it's not illegal,
and that's about the
government's doing it to us. They're getting away with it. Every institution is doing it as well. So how's it illegal?
The churches.
Damien, if you have as much money as these people do and so much power of control, they no longer care about the money. They haven't for ages, because they already feel like they're godlike creatures because of their vast wealth. But now they've said, okay, we want more than the money. That no longer tickles our fancy. We want to have control, complete control, And all the little ants, they're useless eaters, as they see the 99.999999%. They don't respect us. They don't think we have autonomy. And I think if you start delving into our laws, maybe we don't have the protections we thought. So
yeah, well, that's come out in the court cases a lot, so that it's been implied.
Yeah, so my approach is still that we have to give the courts a chance. I mean, you're right at the line now in Victoria with these powers. If these powers get signed by the Governor General, I think you've definitely slipped into what would be globally recognized as a tyrannical state.
That's right. That's right.
Just saying.
Yeah.
It's all part of the war. See, because if you think of it as a virus, people tend to be victims. Oh, I'm scared about getting outside. I've got to clean all my surfaces. People have been. That was the tool that was used to, like 9/11. Oh, can I say that? I don't know. It's a date.
Yeah. Sure.
There was a date called 9/11, but after that, the world changed. And there was a lot of psychological and propaganda programming there. And funny enough, they had all this Patriot Act all prepared to go.
Yeah.
Vaccine immunity.
What I've got here. Yeah.
It was ready to go before we started, So you, in retrospect, you might look back on that as a false flag, which we've never recovered from in terms of our freedoms, because they do colonoscopies now in airports, I've heard, looking for illicit products. And my view is that that's not, if they're looking, for drugs smuggling, and this is no anesthetic, So this is what I mean. The freedoms that we would have considered normal 20 years ago have already been eroding gradually over the last 20 years under the guise of, security and safety. We're just at the this last little bit of safety. If we can just give you this last bit of safety, then you'll never need any more safety ever again.
A great metaphor for what's happening, Doctor, is the 12 apostles. They say, oh, do you want to go down the Great Ocean Road and see the 12 apostles? But the ocean has been gradually eroding them. You turn up, there's only 3. And we're still called the 12 apostles.
Stooges. They're the 3 stooges, not the 12 apostles.
There's just 3. And that's sort of how it is. It's just the wearing away of it. And they're getting ready to collapse as well. And people are slowly, not everybody's waking up. But I'd really interested to know this. Actually, there's someone here wanted to ask about early treatment. So I'll see if I can find it. It was about Kovacs, I think, is the... Maybe if you're watching, maybe you could post it again, because there's so many comments coming through, I can't keep up. Just post it again about your thing. But before you do that, I'd really like to talk, when you talk about the Hippocratic Oath, how important is that during the training? I mean, because at the moment, like the Constitution, which seems to have literally no importance at all, like it's like the what? I can't understand why doctors would go against something that was so profound, and I just thought it was like you couldn't touch it. But the churches are closed, and now they're doing segregation, and the doctors, they literally go, this is what they're saying all the time. It's the government's got to make you do it. You've got to do it for the government. Fuck the patient-doctor relationship. It's doctor-patient with a government in the middle. What the fuck is that?
It's we are the Borg. Resistance is futile.
Yeah.
Your uniqueness will be brought into the collective.
Yeah.
But you will be Borg. You will be Borg.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. The enemy wants.
That's a great analogy.
They want us all to be collectivized and under thumb, and unfortunately, there's a group of us that are saying, no, we don't see this new ideology as where we want to be in the future, not as a species.
We see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. Tirana Beast. Thanks, Tirana, for getting back. Doctor, could you please give your opinion on Novavax and Covax versus early treatment? Thank you.
I think if you did a study head-to-head, and this is what's lacking, of early treatment versus those two vaccines, well, maybe Novavax rather than the other one, because I'm hearing that might be actually just sterilize immunity, So that, but apparently you need lots of millions of dollars to just submit it to the TGA to get approved. So they make great barriers for competitors in the space, shall I say? It's almost like there was a pharmaceutical cartel, backed by government, making it hard for competitors. But we know that would never happen in our society, So
almost as if. Yeah.
What are you talking about, Doctor?
I don't want to be a conspiracy.
So suspicious.
I'm just saying. Now, personally, my view is that my belief and my view from my research is that the risk of the disease doesn't warrant the risks of any vaccine. And given all the misinformation and the lack of trust I have about the contents, not every vaccine is the same. Apparently there are multiple different types of contents. So no one knows what they're getting. And now people are just happily jabbing themselves with anything, mix and match. Hey, I'll have a bit of Moderna, a bit of Pfizer, I'll have a bit of, it doesn't matter, just jabbing with something, because the government wants me jabbed and I need to comply to work. And my point is,
what could go wrong? What could go wrong?
Well,
my point is, they haven't studied early treatment. They never compared early treatment with these so-called vaccines, any of them. And although there may be one there that is actually legitimate, I've already made a solemn oath that I will not be vaccinated again in this lifetime. I'm done. I have no more faith in the institutions and what's the content. Now, the question is, as an Australian, do I have that right? Do I still have that right? I know Americans, Reverend Jacobson versus Massachusetts, there was a Supreme Court judgment in 1907, sorry. This Reverend went to jail, was forcefully vaccinated against his will, and that is still good law, as they call it in the US. It's still precedent. And so I've said to my American friends, you should look into that, because, if you want to get your freedoms back, you should look at Jacobson versus Massachusetts. Now, I'm sure in Australia we have.
Might have been good to look at it 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know about looking at it now. It might be.
I can just see you saying it to a camp guard, and I'll be behind you going, "I'm with him."
Yeah, I want to look at Jacobson 1907. I mean, sure, man. Let's open her up, have a look, see what we find. Yeah, perhaps
can we
Google you a favour, and it'll all be over.
I'd look it up. I'd look it on my phone, but you hit it with a sledgehammer. So yeah,
no,
I'm just saying, Australia has the same sort of vulnerabilities. What we're doing doesn't jibe with the Constitution. It doesn't jibe even with common sense anymore in the Constitution. It doesn't. But see, I'm a great believer. One of the things that I've done differently, I guess, or how I approach things differently, is that human beings, we follow abstractions. We follow, the monopoly pieces, the monopoly scripts, like the value of the dollar, for instance. The dollar is just a human construct. A lot of the space that we're living and fighting and talking within is a human construct. It has no. If you take the humans off the planet, who cares what the stock market ticker says?
Yeah, that's right.
That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to take
that was the same. That was the same, Doctor. When it comes to the violence of the police in Melbourne, the construct used to be that the police protected you and they were safe and they would never ever hurt an old woman ever. And so when those two policemen pushed down and pepper sprayed, that construct fell apart. That's why people were saying, "Oh, it's a man dressed up." They weren't doing that to try and make sense of what happened. They were doing that to try and rebuild their construct so they could feel safe again. But I'm just going to come back to Markin quickly. Markin, were you at the Richmond protests?
No, I wasn't. I saw and heard about it, but I.
So which one did you start with?
The one where they had the two locations. That was a couple of weeks ago, I think.
The two locations, and so like St Kilda.
No, I think one was in the east and one was in the west. But there was no violence by that time because I remember the numbers were starting to dwindle in terms of how many people were turning up. Yeah.
So did you see where all the police would turn up en masse? Did you have that happen to you?
We did have a busload of police turn up. Yep, and then they swooped.
And did that didn't scare you off? You still decided to return to the next protest?
Well, look, I had seen the footage from those Australian protests. I knew what was coming, but it was once you work through the fact that you need to do something and you sort of become aware of what the consequences could be, you accept them and then you move on.
But why? You said before we suggested you play the violin, you said you didn't feel there's much you could do. So what did you think you were achieving, or did you not think that far ahead? Do you just sort of adding your...
It was about conscience, I realized, because I don't think anything changed from the point of view that I thought I could change something by my presence there. But having seen numerous incredibly brave individuals like those police officers that had stood down from their jobs for the sake of standing for their principles, and all those individuals, among whom is the good doctor here, although this is the first time that I have seen him. That was incredibly moving, and I thought, these people are standing up. I can't sit at home anymore. My conscience wouldn't allow me to rest, whether or not it makes a difference. What's happening is evil, pure and simple, and you've got to lift your hand. You've got to by staying silent, you are tacitly letting it happen. And even by standing up, even if you don't change the course of what happens, at least you will look back and you will say, well, at least, I did what I could, as little or as ineffective as it was.
When you use the word evil, are you a religious man?
Yes.
Yep, cool. God is very popular at the moment, believe me.
Silence is simplicity, isn't it?
And yeah,
Sorry?
it is. Are they Ukrainian cushions behind you? Ukrainian pattern? They look Ukrainian.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
Ukrainian embroidery.
See, Damien wouldn't know that. He doesn't know anything about fabrics.
Michael loves his embroidery. That's women's work, mate. All right.
You don't realise how masculine crochet can be, buddy. You get down there, a few years, you're off. There's Doctor, that links up to here with what Damien's saying. And the thing is, what's really interesting is you take a leap of courage. It's like a leap of, you just stand up. You don't know what you can achieve. So when I met, Markin has said, when we met him he didn't know what he could offer except to be there, and yet now he's become one of the faces of the revolution, and that's what you are, Markin, and you'll be for whatever way it goes. You're one of the faces simply for this 1 minute time. around the world. It's
Mark,
really interesting.
Of the
Not really the
counter-revolution.
face.
We're the counter-revolution. They're the revolution. We're
He's
the
the
counter-revolution.
That's right.
He's the
Sorry,
frequency.
Doctor?
He's the frequency of the revolution. He's the sound of the revolution.
Fantastic. Yeah.
He's not Mark, and don't worry about your face. Your music speaks for yourself.
Yeah, nobody's interested in my face. That's all right. No,
I love your face too. Don't get me wrong.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Especially next to those embroidered cushions. There's a sort of.
They can grow a beard. Oh no, he's got a beard. There's but that's a beautiful thing. The frequency of the revolution. That's things because he hit it. He nailed it.
What?
That's why I think everyone got so upset.
Yeah, I think everybody does have something to offer in their own small way, and I think by putting yourself in a position where you create those opportunities, then you will discover those possibilities. I wasn't expecting to offer anything except my very inadequate presence, but because I happened to be at that Ackland Street picnic, I met Michael, and then one thing led to another. So I think it's also a call to arms for everyone. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are or what you think you can offer.
That's what that's a perfect thing, because here Mandy Raggers says, does Markin realise the impact he's had? One of the impacts you've had is out there. If you think you've got nothing to offer, you don't know. Turn up. You don't know. There's going to be another march on Saturday. We'd love to double the numbers. The police have no interest in having any violence. I talked to them today. They don't want any violence. They're really happy there was none. So double, triple, quadruple the numbers. And then Damien has suggested, because then there's a second, so we'll be having speaking, and Markin will be playing in the first Melbourne, the one in Melbourne, which is around about 12 o'clock, I suppose. We'll find out. And then Damien's had a great suggestion of saying we all get in a convoy and head to the Geelong protest and, bib our horns all the way there to protest right across the city. And, the port guys are just sitting there at home going, what did he say? and then go and do the Geelong one.
Yeah, but it's a logistic nightmare for them. It's a logistic nightmare for them. Because then they have to come down the highway with us, and by all means, they can come down
and stop all of us, stop all the cars. Yeah, it's great.
Exercise our free democratic right to have a voice and an opinion.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And there's going to be a whole group of people from Geelong and surrounding districts are going to be supporting this event in the park there in Corio Bay. So more details will be coming throughout the week. So
and if you've watched it on the TV, you've watched it on internet, that's great. But there's nothing like it when you're actually there. As long as they've got the speakers set up, if you're there in that crowd, the feeling in the crowd, the coming together of people by this tune, it's a historical moment. So I really recommend, if nothing else, if you want to just celebrate a historic moment, come down and listen to this man play on what's the instrument? Piano, violin, and come down. Honestly, it's stunning. And I have to say too, just before I move to the doctor, Markin, weren't you heading? You'd won a fellowship, hadn't you? And you were heading to Europe.
I was supposed. Yes, I had. I was given a Churchill Fellowship in 2019, and 2020 was supposed to be a big year of exploding onto the European stage, and of course everything ended up imploding instead. That's how it is. And now here you are. But it turned out that, as it turns out, all I should have done is stand in front of the Parliament steps and play the Australian National Anthem.
Who saw that coming?
Instead of wasting my life for decades, wasting my life for decades practicing concertos. Practicing concertos and playing all that sort of stuff. Who needs that?
No.
that thing that we get, and I get too from people, is like this tacit support from people like, oh, Damien, it's so great you're standing up. Someone has to stand up. Look, I had to have my jab because I've got to pay for this, and I've got all this stuff that I have to do. And I think, well, so have I. Do you know what I mean? At what point can you say to these people that tacit support, you know, we are where we're at now. You've done what you've done to this point, but is it time now to make that tacit support into something more concrete and turn up on Saturday? Make these numbers 12. Make it important. Because what job are you going to have after it anyway? You're going to play in a gilded cage. Sorry? Yeah.
Yeah, because the protest isn't against not taking the jab. The protest is against segregation. The protest is about choice. The protest is about not destroying our economy and the social fabric of our community. The protest is about not bringing in, giving Dan Andrews these draconian laws and letting it off and letting the parliament rule. You know, so this is what it's all about. The vaccination is a done deal. You want to take it, you don't want to take it. Doctor, have you been to any protests? Because I'm telling you, if you were down here in Melbourne, you'd be a superhero. You would.
I'd love to be down there. Look, one of the things I wanted to get back to about that anthem and the way it transformed the crowd is there was peace. It was complete peace. Even when you peered over the images of the police officers, even they, you know, their hearts must have been touched. You know,
you would hope so. You would, you know, maybe.
So my sketch out is that we have to defeat the enemy with love. You know,
yes.
which is really hard when you're dealing with such evil, because
but you're right.
We're really dealing with such evil. I have no doubt about it. But the idea of being able to, and the point I'm trying to make is that when everything was peaceful, that's the most beautiful state. You know, whether you've got 10,000 there or you've got 500,000 people standing there, if they're standing there in peace and united, that's a force that the AI will not defeat. I promise you, or whoever the evil is. And the point is that if we cannot engage in violence, we will not.
No.
You know, they've got their UN trucks ready. That's what they want. They want. They will try and provoke it in any way they can to create the next step of their plan. But if we take it, you know, like Gandhi when he was fighting the English in India, he said, "Look, we'll take the hits, but we'll film it and post it as well. But we'll take the hits. You know, we'll take the hits, but we'll film it and post it, and the whole world will see."
The UN trucks have been seen in Brisbane. There's UN trucks in Brisbane.
I know.
Yeah, and there's a TikTok going around that soldiers are being trained to break into houses and pull people out. That's one going viral at the moment. So who the hell knows what's coming down the tubes? But I think the other thing too, Markin, is not only did you get people listening to the music, but literally for the minute 42 seconds, you got everyone to stop and see the forest for the trees. This is where we are. This is where we are now. Look around, close your eyes, feel it with your soul. This is it. We are at the end of something beautiful, and it doesn't have to be the end if we are just all stand up and go, no, we don't want what's coming. Thank you very much. We're going back to being the beautiful country we were, because that's what I said in the speech. You cannot rebuild the world's most livable city on fear. You can't do it. You can only do it on love. That's it. Fear destroys, and that's what it's doing now. It's destroying our community, you know. The only beautiful thing I have is that when I'm on the steps with Parliament, it's just so lovely sitting with these protesters coming up, all these strangers connecting. It's really lovely, even though they're under complete duress. It's really beautiful, yeah. Yeah. Now, Doctor, anything you wanted else to say while we have you on the air? And I promise I won't touch the goat.
Can I talk about treatment?
Yeah, go.
May I give the benediction? Thank you. I wanted to talk about the eye mask protocol, and just to tell people that if you just type in FLCC, I'll do it in real time if you give me, FLCCC.net. There you go, .net. You'll get FLCC Alliance. It's one of many protocols, but it's the one that I'm talking about.
Type it in. I'll type it in. What is it? FLCC.net.
and it'll come up as COVID-19 critical care, and at least on my browser, and you'll see a tab that says protocols. If you click on protocols, you'll see eye mask.
Yeah.
So why don't we go there first?
Oh, I don't know how to do that. That's too complicated for me.
If you scroll down, it's there. It'll say there's an American flag. You might have to click on that to get it, to get the protocol. But okay, prevention. Vitamin D, 1,000 to 3,000 units a day. Vitamin C,
where'd the boy go?
Quercetin, 250 milligrams a day. Zinc and melatonin, and ivermectin or Nigella sativa, which is the black
Nigella seeds. Wow. Okay.
You get it from farm. You know, if you, so that's the first thing I want to say about early treatment. So this is the prevention protocol I'm talking about now, which is just how you boost your immune system to make you, to not just COVID, but anything. Then you've got the early treatment protocol, and they've got a higher dose of ivermectin there, 0.4 to 0.6 per kilo. But they also talk about mouthwashes, so that you kill and nose drops or steam to kill the virus. If you're feeling sick, you've got viral replication, kill the enemy when it's here, not when it's in the lungs and elsewhere. And it's easy to do with.
So that's like with steam, like even the steam over.
Yeah.
Okay.
They don't talk about, but some people use tea tree oil in the steamer just to kill the. But if look at the protocol, it's all there. So, and then early treatment.
Just hit a note, Paul, that it's with 3 C's, FLCCC. Someone just wanted me to point that out to you. Just
3C,
get it right. Yep.
CCC.net. Yeah. You look at the early treatment. It's these gargles, which are simple as nose drops. Like I say, kill the enemy when it's before it has a chance to invade or cause problems. Then you've got. In terms of treatment, they still talk about quercetin, zinc, but now a higher dose of zinc and vitamin C at a higher dose. This is now someone who's symptomatic and unwell. But the fascinating thing is they talk about aspirin, full dose aspirin, unless contraindicated, vitamin D at a higher dose if you're sick, or use calcitriol, which is the more available form of vitamin D. Because it can take a few days for the vitamin D to get activated. It can actually take a long time to reverse your vitamin D deficiency. And like I said last week, if you can do one thing, you can reverse your vitamin D deficiency.
Why is that? Why is that, doctor? Is it the body's not used to absorbing it, or it's do they know why?
There's a pandemic of vitamin D deficiency.
Because we're all inside.
Also obesity and diet, and you can't get depending on your latitude, even people in the tropics are vitamin D deficient because they don't want to have their skin brown, so they hide from the sun. It's quite easy to be deficient. So that's my message here. Melatonin, aspirin, I've mentioned, and again they talk about synergistic therapies, which is quercetin, zinc at a high dose, as I said, vitamin C, nutritional therapeutics like curcumin, which is turmeric.
Oh wow! Okay, everyone says take turmeric a lot.
To me, it tastes like old this essence of Swedish sauna, but it's quite good with me.
What? Yeah. Hang on, there's another question there.
That's what it used to be called. Just a tad of essence of Swedish sauna.
Wonders why he's on his own.
Nigella sativa, we mentioned honey. I mentioned that last week. That's on the protocol if you're on the same page as me here. And I've found some research. I think I misspoke. I said last week it's like body's ivermectin. It's actually far more like the body's quercetin. But it's honey's a little bit different. It's got a group of polyphenols, which you can find this stuff in your bloody kitchen cabinet. Is my point. We can do.
Amazing.
I saw video footage. I don't know.
Mix it all together. That'd be an interesting concoction.
I can't promise. I can't promise. See, Pernod has star of anise, and if you get the absinthe, which my father used to love.
What's in the glass?
It's
Oh, I thought you said something else.
Start
Oh,
with
yeah,
me.
yeah, sorry.
But
It's
you
just
can
because it
get
was
the
yellow,
word,
I was just wondering.
you can get the
The
word.
only way around the whole thing, just pretend none of it's happening, you know?
Yeah, that's it. Switch off your telly, that works.
All right, nearly done. Nearly done. Second line therapies, anti-androgens. Finasteride, that's the easy one to pronounce. Fluvoxamine, and SSRIs, and monoclonal antibodies. And then third line is steroids. But at the hospital, all the doctors are giving you is the third line thing, right? The shittiest steroid, the weakest steroid. By the time you've got the full blown vasculitis, consolidating pneumonia, they give you the weakest steroid, and then they give you remdesivir. So
who comes up with these names, Doctor? Do they come up with them on purpose just so the rest of us feel stupid? I mean, couldn't they just call it?
That's what they study.
Couldn't they just call it
7 years?
Dongro? There's Dongo or Tongo or Tag, something simple. We go, oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah. They've got to come with this. The only reason we know some of these names is when you get it. Myocarditis. It's like finding out the only reason you know that country exists is when you're fighting there in a war. Like the Falkland Islands or Vietnam.
But this is this is just a quick tour of early treatment. I'm just saying it's a really rich palette, and if you type in C19early.com, which I'm going to do now too, you're going to get, this is scientific stuff. It's what you call a forest plot, and you'll look at all the early treatment studies on a forest plot where 1 means it does nothing and 0 means it wipes it out.
Wow, that's amazing, Doctor.
If you're at 0.1, that means a 90% reduction, and if it's at like 0.9, it means you've just reduced it by 10%. Okay, so
wow,
if you look
that's
at
incredible.
You can see a lot of the things I've been mentioning are here, including other things that you might not have thought about, like probiotics, which like it's more effective than remdesivir.
That's a doctor joke. He just went over the rest of our heads. Markin's going, what's he talking about? The doctor, that's hilarious.
It is. Colchicine, vitamin D, you'll see there's zinc, with like 50% odd reduction. Molnupiravir, which is the new mutagen that the Pfizer-Mectin.
That's expensive, $700.
Oh yeah, your mutagens don't come cheap. Melatonin, look how powerful melatonin is there compared to, and vitamin D, all of it's there. Nigella sativa, quercetin. You can see.
What's Conv-Plaza at the bottom? What's that? -1%.
Proxalutamide. Convalescent
plasma. The last one.
Yeah, useless.
It's got -1%. It's $7,000.
Yeah. Do you know?
$5,000.
Do you know that's quite interesting because convalescent plasma worked last year before the vaccinations. In other words, the antibodies of the people who had been infected naturally, this is called natural immunity. I don't know if you're allowed to use those words anymore, but natural immunity, the antibodies you produced in the convalescent plasma last year actually cured you. It cured you. But you got all these antibodies from people who had recovered naturally, many different epitopes to recognize the virus and attack it. It worked. It doesn't work anymore because now, in part, I think because the vaccinated people, they don't develop the full range of epitopes. They develop a very narrow immunity around the spike, particularly the original Wuhan spike. And once the virus evolves past it, that approach is useless.
I saw that. There's a video of that, like you said, a football team where your natural immunity could protect against all of them, but the and this is going to get us kicked off YouTube. Probably already been on. We've already been back on for an hour and a half. There's it actually, the vaccination only protects against one, and the others can shoot past or something like that.
Using the same spike protein, just producing the same.
That's ADE. That gridiron analogy is just another way of
the gridiron.
That's another way of describing ADE. So look, all I'm trying to say is you look at these things. There are many things between gargles, between herbs, between curcumin, between it doesn't have to be hydroxychloroquine. It doesn't have to be budesonide. But my point is, if you've got a kid who's asthmatic, you might have budesonide in the house. You might have. Anyway, I can go on, but I just wanted to. Shall I continue?
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, when you see like this forest plot, you can see that there are many things which have effect that can help you, and some are stronger than others. And you can see that proxalutamide, which is an anti-androgen, which is also part of the treatment protocols, but it's a second line and third line drug, looks very effective. But then so does iota carrageenan, which is actually a seaweed extract, you know.
Wow.
And quercetin is in the top 3 there, on a small amount of data, but yet quite amazing results with Dr. Zelenko's Z-Stack protocol and the overlap with the WHO trial in Uttar Pradesh that worked so well. It was basically these same core components. The holy horse paste, the vitamin D, the zinc, the quercetin, and melatonin's the special source, I guess, or special insight or emphasis of the FLCC. But
do you know what's annoying, Doctor? You're talking science, right? Even though you're great at doing it. All we've been told is follow the science, follow the science. You're talking science, and chances are we've probably already been kicked off everything. Everyone's still transfixed. The numbers watching the show just on this page are still high. So everyone wants to know. And yet the social media, if you're out there, will be going, oh, no, this goes against our standards, basically shutting down science. And I'm just looking at the webpage, which I've never heard of. The government never shares it. The government never talks about any of these things. The health ministers never come out and go, have you checked this website for other things? The doctors, none of the doctors do. And here's the doctor that did. And what you get for your troubles, you get deregistered.
Well,
science has never said it.
Where the hell does that make a scary
The world
sense?
doesn't make sense to me. The world doesn't make sense to me, Michael. I accept that.
Yeah.
That the world has gone effing crazy, and and I consider myself a leaf in the hurricane, like my friend with his violin, and I'm just floating in the wind. I happen to be screaming early treatment while I'm floating. And I'm also saying, watch out, tyranny is close. It's so close, guys. But I think
that's more important, Paul, what you're talking about. And I think both of you have talked about that tonight. And that's the idea of that Patriot Act, or that. So what's been weaponized, this idea of an external threat has been weaponized against internal people, an internal threat now. So what we're considered, violent extremists for standing our ground. And that's
and for just speaking the truth.
Yeah. Well, that's what it was in the Ukraine too, with Stalin. What Stalin hated about the Ukraine was their strong sense of national pride, because their sense of nationalism flew in the face of the internationalist designs of the perfect man that's going to rule the world and be this, communist or fascist Übermensch. And that stood in the face of it. And it's the same with Australia. Any sense of strong national identity flies in the face of their agenda and their program. And we've been undermined as a culture now for decades and decades. And decades.
Australia isn't alone in that.
Not at all. Not at all.
And even what you're saying, Doctor, what you're saying with all these things, you don't have to be scared of this thing. There's a lot of things you can do. A lot of things.
The other thing
you can even self-medicate if you go looking for them for yourself.
Michael, the other thing I wanted to raise is the true risk comparisons, because the other side of it is the fear, as we were saying, and people have a completely unrealistic sense of the danger. Because if you're taking any sort of therapy, you have to compare it to the risks of the therapy, of the risk of the condition. If the condition has a 1 in a million chance of killing you, as it might be the case for kids, any treatment that kills 10 in a million is a travesty, because you're killing 10 times as many people as you would have left if they just left them to their devices. And this is another point, which is it's been programmed into people to be fearful, so they no longer have a touch with. And so I posted the Stanford study by Ioannidis and Exfor, which is called True Risk Comparisons. And the thing, when I'm looking at this, is that it's an exponential curve in terms of risk. But for 0 to 19 years of age, survival is 99.997, according to this, very well-respected authority.
Facts, according to facts.
That's why I think we're talking about something else. It's fine to talk about the science, but we're actually talking about something else. There's this far greater threat.
Just on the subject of fear, I came upon an incredibly accurate and powerful statement by an Italian philosopher, Giorgio Agamben. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of him, but I think last year he wrote this statement, and I found it and I copied it out so that I could share it today because I thought the subject of fear might pop up. And he writes, he's a philosopher of biopolitics, and he writes, "What is fear? Fear is fear of the thing," in inverted commas, which is to say of an entity that, because we have isolated it from and therefore lost its relationship to the world, threatens us. The thing is the threat from which we run in horror movies, not realizing that we are instead running straight into the trap prepared for us by our own fears. That the danger is not that from which we flee, but the hopeless reality to which our fears deliver us. Engulfed by this fear, which surrounds us on all sides, any and every means of protection is adopted, from locking ourselves in our homes to wearing a mask whenever we leave. For the thing that threatens us is that smallest of entities, a virus. But in doing so, we only reaffirm our fear, which grows to a constant feeling of helplessness before the thing. In despair, we reach out for the reassurance of those in authority, the policeman who arrives at the last minute to save us from the thing, or the doctor who will tell us how to kill it. But this does not rid us of our feelings of insecurity. On the contrary, the authorities never tire of telling us that the thing cannot be defeated once and for all, that its threat will always be with us, confirming our impotence in the face of the thing and increasing its hold over us. Soon we begin to desire this fear, unable to stop peeking between our fingers at what terrifies us, wanting to live in a permanent state of insecurity. Fear, constant and growing, anticipates and dismisses in advance any argument, any reason, any data that might dispel its illusion. Eventually, we only watch those films that terrify us and close our eyes to anything that might risk restoring us to a world in which the virus, no longer as an abstract thing but in its concrete relationship to reality, would lose its terrifying aspect and be revealed instead for what it is. I think it's incredible the way he manages that, and that's part. I mean, that's a huge part of what I've been dissatisfied with, is the use of fear in the past 2 years. Fear has been used to present the narrative. Fear has been used to silence debate, and it's not justified in any way, shape, or form. You know, if you want good decision-making process in any sort of crisis, is fear going to help? No, right? The physiological and the psychological changes that happen to us as a result of fear, they go in opposite ways to cool, rational thinking in terms of what the problems are. Fear, it makes us question the authorities less, because they present themselves as our saviors, whilst at the same time being the ones who propagate the fear. And it shuts down debate, because any questioning of authorities, for example, why I believe that there's been such a hysterical reaction many people in time.
I think you're breaking up there a little, Markin.
Yeah, you are.
The AI is after him. He's going into the
getting
matrix.
too close. He's getting too close to the bone there.
Dutton's changing
Hello,
the
can you hear me?
tape, Markin. Yeah, Dutton was
We can
changing
hear
the
you.
tape. He just called me and said, "Look, I didn't get that." Oh, he's gone. There's
Hello.
Yeah,
sorry. The connection isn't very good.
We got up to the start of that quote. What
Yeah, so you're playing the violin.
Yeah, so I started when I was 4. No, why it's dangerous. This hysterical reaction to any criticism of Daniel Andrews is because he represents safety as people see it. Yeah, and to criticize him is to criticize the entire safety that is being offered and leaves people once again left with nothing else but the massive message of fear that is being propagated, and it just shuts everything down and is the wrong way to go about any sort of process. And of course, people know this, and if you're in a leadership position, you're aware of this. If you're even if you're a health provider, you're aware of the fact that if you force feed people a diet of fear for months at a time, can that possibly have a positive effect on health?
They've had it for 2 years.
It's the opposite. If you look at the old Harrisons, which is the Bible of internal medicine that I grew up with decades ago, the original section, it talks about eating well, sleeping well.
All common sense has gone out of the window. Yeah,
things like fear and stress are known to damage the immune system. It's almost like there was a concerted campaign to damage the immune systems of our population.
Yeah.
Especially in the aging part of the population with the degenerative diseases, but no, sit at home alone by yourself and just watch fear on TV all the time. I mean,
and that's what you get people together, doctor. Like we had at a picnic the other day, all strangers. We had this unwashed picnic, and after 10 minutes, they're talking critical, and all bringing in what they've seen, and suddenly the entire bullshit is just destroyed by getting people together. And that's why I think, is that why they've closed the churches? Is that why they've closed the clubs? They don't want people to get together to talk through this because they're clever enough to go, hey, and realize it's crap. That's why when we first went to the march, I actually thought, am I going mad? Because I couldn't talk about it much with anybody. Am I going and every time I put something on Facebook, it got taken down. Am I going mad? I feel mad. And then suddenly I'm in this huge crowd of people who think the same. And it was like refugees from tyranny. It was beautiful. I never felt, and it just filled my soul. And everyone's going, yeah, I'm not taking the fucking jabs, fucking bullshit, and whatever their beliefs. But they were talking freely. That actually led to the start of this show. I realized how important even a discussion like this, unscripted talking, bounces ideas off from different people, and it's so healthy, And that's what they really want to crush.
And then all these external forces saying to you, when you did that, Michael, all these external forces saying, no, don't do that. What are you doing? Are you crazy? There's a dangerous virus out there, and you're, how outrageous. You're an idiot.
You're the spreader. You're the monkey in outbreak.
It's insanity.
There was a fascinating
Al Pacino's
interview.
out there looking for you. Dustin Hoffman's out there looking for you somewhere. Can he find it? We'll stop it. This little Welsh playwright's on the way.
He sneezed in an elevator. The whole country's on a manhunt.
He was eating a bat. He was eating a bat on a popsicle, and not a little Chinese bat, a big flying fox.
Wrap it in. Martin, sorry, you're going to make something. You're going to say something pertinent.
Just on that subject there, I saw a fascinating transcript of an interview done with 3 Nobel Prize winners. And this one was a Nobel Prize winner. He was a Nobel Prize winner in physics, and I think he teaches at Stanford or at I think it's Stanford. Anyway, professor of physics, and he was basically saying that when all of this started happening, he started doing time comparison graphs, and he was saying that the field of physics is actually also very well suited to analyzing epidemics because of the way that they operate with in the field of time analysis. And he was saying that all of the data that he was coming up with was pointing not in the direction of that all of the the Imperial College London report that's now been widely discredited as hugely overblown. And he was saying that his data was not showing any of this, and he was putting it out there. And he was saying that the responses he was getting from his fellow scientists were not, "Oh, your data is wrong." the responses he was getting was, how are you why are you doing this? How can you do this? How irresponsible of you to do this? No one was actually telling him, and he was saying, if you have a problem with my data, please tell me. I want to know about it. But nobody was actually interested in the data whatsoever. They were simply interested in the ideology that you couldn't even put that data out there.
The accusation is that he's antisocial for not going along with what is the common wisdom, the accepted norm. It's happened here too with Peter Ridd at the Cook University, because he doesn't go along with what's going to happen to the Barrier Reef. Same thing. Exactly the same thing happened to him.
While I'm thinking of it, can I raise, when I was listening to Neil Angus, I believe it was, without the burger today, we mentioned the Melbourne Experiment. I guess that's close to your heart. Are you aware of the Melbourne Experiment?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, it's one of the universities is doing it, isn't it?
Yeah.
The tribe was Monash.
If you DuckDuckGo, as I just did, maybe not Google, but if you DuckDuckGo the Melbourne Experiment, you'll get a link to the monash.edu website, and it'll tell you all the lovely things about the experiment which is taking place on the Melbourne people.
Part of the Strong Cities Network.
Yeah.
Which we're saying.
And I'll tell you that Neil didn't know about this, and it struck me today that I think all the members of Parliament need to know that you're being currently engaged in a experiment funded by regional US Sustainable Development. Anyway, who cares? You know the money. You know where the money's coming from.
All the usuals. Yeah.
The money's coming from someone who really loves you and cares for you. That's all I'm saying.
We can feel it. We're feeling it.
You can feel it. I'm just saying, maybe you should let all your parliamentarians, the ones who are going to vote in the Senate, and before it gets to the governor. I just think that it's amazing that they probably don't know about this, because it's not, they need to know that you've been targeted, right? And that the rest of the world and the rest of Australia stand in solidarity with you guys 100%. And we want to end it. And we want to end this. And we will help you in any way we can. Like I said, if we have to come and get you, we'll come and get you. But I actually think you'll be able to make your own way to wherever we're going to have whatever big piss up we're going to have to celebrate. But at the moment, we're not ready to celebrate, because we're really on the brink here of fights that we have to do.
We're on the edge of democracy, Doctor. We're staring down the edge. We had a thing of saying
this corollary.
Democracy's gone. Like I say, if you don't have free speech, you don't have democracy.
Yeah. No,
so democracy left a long time ago.
Corollary to Markian's. But this thought, right? Just quickly, the corollary to Markin's, great dissertation on fear from the philosopher is now their crimes are so heinous and so diabolical that they have to shut us up.
Mm.
Now, how's that for fear?
Mm.
How's that for a really frightening thought?
Because Thanks. I want to end on a hopeful note. I hadn't got enough fear today.
But it's fake.
It's fake.
My point, Damien. My point is, Damien, that it's not in contact with reality, just like your premier.
No.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm not confused. I think he's a lot of people are out of touch with reality, including my colleagues. And it doesn't mean I love them any less. I think they've been brainwashed. I think they've been manipulated. And fear was a big part of that, as Markian.
It's fear. Mentioned. The fear. You get it all down to fear.
They can't see the facts. So the reason I come on and say, ask me all the questions about early treatment and how you treat yourself if you've had the vaccine, you want to protect yourself further. I'm happy to do that, because once you lessen the fear, you can start to take action. But it is definitely a time to take action.
Are you doing your own rants on Rumble or anything, Doctor? Because they'd probably take them off Facebook, but Rumble might on early things. It'd be really interesting. Anyway, I better wrap it up, because as usual, our hour-long show, it's just fucking
It's been great though, guys. Really,
Oh,
good.
it's been
such
terrific.
good-
It's been terrific. But I'm not going to. So if you want to see now, I'll just go out with this one little compliment. Is Doctor, I admire your bravery so much. It's so great to meet you. Your thing. I miss you doing the ivermectin in your mouth. That's
Horse
just here
paste.
it comes.
Yeah.
You watch this. This is great.
I've already treated.
Talking about Nobel Prizes, that's a Nobel Prize winning medication, ivermectin. Nobel Prize winning medication.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
In a few years, we'll probably, with this, once Facebook becomes Mecca, we could probably have taken that, be all over our face. It'd be amazing. There's a, now, they have not been able to isolate COVID-19 despite all their attempts. But a couple of days ago, a young man with a violin managed to capture the frequency of the nation. That's you, buddy. I'm very, very proud to know you. I'm honored. It was an amazing moment, And everybody's been asking you to do Waltzing Matilda, but you'd already bloody thought of that, and so we had it. So we're just going to play you a taste of this to go out tonight. But if you want to see Markin, if you want to be really moved, if you want to really feel what the national anthem feels like, then come to these marches. There'll be one on I'll be on the steps of Parliament probably. Tomorrow we're at the Melbourne Cup across the road.
Yep. Melbourne Cup,
Melbourne Cup. There's an unwashed
in the Maribyrnong
across,
Park, just over the Maribyrnong
yeah,
River.
in the Maribyrnong Park. Yeah. And just follow the police; they'll point you in the right direction. And we'll probably be under the helicopter. And
hopefully we've got a bigger crowd than them. They've only got 10,000 allowed to go. Hopefully we'll do more. Hopefully we're more.
50,000. Calm down. I don't know if Markin's there. Maybe we'll be. We don't know. But we'll definitely be there. But on Saturday, Markin will be playing at this, and if our convoy doesn't get stopped, maybe we'll be in Geelong. If anybody out there wants to donate a bus for the event and a whole group of the protesters, like the organisers and the speakers and everything, could be on the bus. That could be amazing. Could be filmed. That could go around the world. So there's a bus driver out there with the bus wants to come in and help spread the word. Get in touch. Could be amazing. Could be a moment in history. Otherwise, gentlemen, good night, Doctor.
Good night, everyone.
Oosterhouse.
Thank you all.
I'm a massive fan of you, buddy. Markin.
Yes,
well,
thank you, Doctor. You're a hero.
And to the rest of Australia,
Thanks,
have a look at this. We put some, I think we put quotes to it that people have been putting up onto the page. And so we put quotes to it, and then just some images that people have taken of the protesters. And it was more to do with how everybody was feeling worn out. So this is Markin and just a smidgen of Waltzing Matilda. Good night, everybody.